Bienvenidos! Welcome to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast, the show for Spanish learners that love music, travel, and culture. Close your grammar textbooks, shut down the language apps, and open your ears to how Spanish is spoken in the real world. Let us show you how to go from beginner to bilingual. Here is your host, certified language coach, Tamara Marie.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos al episodio 82. Welcome to episode 82 of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. In this episode, I'll be breaking down one of our team's favorite songs by Celia Cruz. So we've been talking about Celia a lot lately, and it was actually a request from our listeners to feature more female artists. So just consider this Celia Cruz month on Spanish con Salsa. So I'll be breaking down the letra or lyrics to one of her most popular songs in this episode. But before we get started, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners. Sharon left us a 5-star review on iTunes, so I just wanted to give her a shout out and say gracias. Thank you so much for leaving us a 5-star review. Reviews really do help us and they help other people find the podcast, so thank you so much. And don't forget, you can also leave a review on iTunes. You can just click on the link in the description of the podcast and you will be able to leave us a review as well. Okay, so Sharon says, "Thank you, Tamara, for inspiring me to keep learning. Sometimes I get a little discouraged, but you give me hope that I can learn Spanish. I really enjoy your podcast and wisdom. Love this podcast." Thank you so much for that review. Again, we really appreciate it, and we love to hear from our listeners. So if you are enjoying the podcast and you find it useful, we really do like to hear from you, and we really do appreciate getting your feedback, because that's really what helps us keep going with the show. And we also want to make sure that we are serving you. So again, gracias, Sharon. So let's get to the song of the day. All right. So we're going to be talking about the song La vida es un carnaval. And as I mentioned, it is by Celia Cruz. Right. So in this song, we're actually going to learn several different expressions that use the Spanish word ay. Ay. And that's actually spelled Hay, ay. But as you may know from our pronunciation episodes, or if you've been studying Spanish for any length of time, you may already know that the letter H is always silent. The only exception to that if it's right after the letter C, so you have the ch sound. But other than that, the H in Spanish is silent, so that I is actually spelled Hay. So we'll talk about some expressions that you can actually use in day-to-day conversation that use this very, very common Spanish word. And I'll give you a little bit of the grammar behind that as well. So I'll be reviewing the first couple of verses here and the chorus. And if you want to get access to the lyrics for the song, and also to hear the song, because I will not be playing the song in this episode, but I will be reviewing the lyrics. If you want to check out the music video and actually hear the song by Celia Cruz, you can go to learnspanishconsalsa.com/82. So that's our show notes page at learnspanishconsalsa.com/82. Or again, you can click on the link in the description in the podcast app that you're listening to right now, and we make it really easy for you. Just click on the link and it will take you right to the show notes page. So right after you listen to this episode, you can check out the song and you can listen to it and add it to your playlist. Okay, so let's start with the first verse. So I'm just going to read it and then I will give you the translation and explain just a few things about the vocabulary that's used in the song. So again, this is a really fun song. It is very uplifting, it's very inspiring, definitely has a positive message. So I definitely recommend this is one that you save, right? And that you listen to over and over again. And I'm sure you will fall in love with it too if you haven't already heard it. Celia starts off by saying, "Todo aquel que piense que la vida es desigual tiene que saber que no es así, que la vida es una hermosura, hay que vivirla." Okay, so that's the first part of the song. So I'll go line by line. This time I'll say it a little bit slower and I'll give you the translation to English for each line. Okay, so she starts out by saying, todo aquel. Todo aquel. So todo aquel is more like a phrase. So if you take the words individually, todo means like everything or all. And aquel, this is actually a word we don't have a direct translation for in English. When it's used on its own, aquel means something like ese or that, right? So this aquel can just mean that. And the only difference really between aquel and ese for that is aquel is usually referring to something that's further away. So it's something that either by distance or by time, or even you can use it to indicate emotional distance. So that thing, whatever you're referring to, is something that is far away from you and the person that you're talking to. So it's another way to say that in Spanish normally. But in this case, todo aquel is more of a phrase. So I wouldn't try to translate this word for word. It's really a phrase that just means anyone. So she's really addressing this to any person. Okay, so anyone out there that agrees with this next statement, which we'll get to, that's who she's talking to. So todo aquel, any of those, anyone, all of those to any person. So she's just kind of, saying who this message is for. So todo aquel que piense que la vida es desigual. Que piense que la vida es desigual. So, que piense is that, think. Que la vida, that life, es desigual. So is unfair. Or that things are unequal. So, todo aquel que piense que la vida es desigual. So one thing about this desigual, I wanted to just call attention to the prefix des. So that's in English we would say des. So des, D-E-S-E. It means something like un in English. So like the prefix un. So just for example, igual means like the same or equal, right? Desigual is unequal or unfair in this case because we're talking about life in general being unfair. Another example of this is like conocido. Conocido means known, but desconocido means unknown. All right, another example is hacer. Hacer means to do or to make, but deshacer means undo. So you can think about it like if you have a PC, like that Control Z, right? When you hit Control Z, it's like undo that action. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on. So if you notice this as a prefix, in English it usually means something like un. So igual, desigual, conocido, desconocido, hacer, deshacer. So hopefully you found that helpful. So let's get to the next line. So she says, tiene que saber que no es así. Tiene que saber que no es así. So this tiene que